Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the GPD XD Plus. The XD Plus came out in 2018 and was branded a very powerful handheld at the time. It could play Android, it could play emulators, and it could also stream games. So what's it going to be like in 2021? So let's do this breakdown and we'll see how it stands up today. So in the box you get your standard DC adapter, your charging cable. Nice quality. I was a bit disappointed to not get an English adapter. Packaging is fairly decent, and obviously you get the actual handheld itself. So the XD Plus has a CPU to the MTK8176. The GPU is the PowerVR GX6250. It has a quad-core 2.1 GHz. It has RAM and ROM of 4 gig and 64 gig. It has a 5-inch screen at 1280 x 720 pixel, and it runs on Android 7. It has your 4 shoulder buttons, it has your HDMI out, and your memory card slot, micro SD. And as you can see, it's a nice design, very reminiscent of the 3DS and the clamshell design. And you know, it's a decent quality handheld. So if we compare it to the actual 3DS, 3DS you can see at the bottom of the screen. Size wise, very similar. I think the 3DS is slightly longer, but when you come to the width, they're about the same. The thickness, very similar again, not much between them. As you can see, the design is very similar. Quality wise, I still think the Nintendo 3DS is slightly better when it comes to the build quality. But if you again look side by side, you'll see that the actual screen on the XD Plus is quite a bit larger. But everything else is very similar, if I'm honest with you. Weight wise, I think the XD Plus is slightly heavier as well, or at least it felt heavier to me. But yeah, it's not a bad design at all. If we look at it next to the PS Vita for comparison, again you can see that the PS Vita is longer, quite a bit longer than the XD Plus. And if you look at the thickness, the XD Plus is quite a bit thicker than the PS Vita. PS Vita is a lot lighter to hold as well, but the screen on the XD Plus is marginally larger, I think, than on the Vita. So when it comes to the buttons, nice quality buttons on them. The only thing I would say is that they don't have that nice clicky feel that you would sometimes like to have on the buttons, but they're okay. They do the job. You have your back buttons, your home, your select, and your start. Again, they don't press down that much, and it's the same with the D-pad as well, as you can see. D-pad's okay. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but it gets the job done. The sticks, again, decent quality. The only thing I did find was they collected the dust quite a bit on the rubber tops, but very comfortable to use, very responsive. You have your L3 and your right 3 because you can't click the sticks in, and then you have your on button, your volume button, your control and map button, and also your button that you can bring up all your different screens that you've got live. On the back, you have your shoulder buttons, so you have your L1, right 1, L2, right 2. Again, the buttons are okay. I did think that they were slightly loose at first, but that's just the design of them. You then have your micro SD card slot and your HDMI out, so you can connect it up to the TV. One thing I didn't like was the GPD name at the very bottom. It just cheapens the whole look and feel of the console, to be honest with you. Booting it up takes quite a while. It takes around about 40 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds to boot up from switching it on to the actual home screen. The screen is one of the highlights for me. The image that you get from it is absolutely superb. More so watching films and so on. It's excellent. Touch sensitive as well, so you can either use the controls or just use your fingers to move from screen to screen. Comes in handy when you're playing some of the touch responsive games that you can download. What is great is the versatility of what this handheld can do. You can play Android games, you can stream your games from Xbox Game Pass. There are tons and tons of stuff you can do with it, and as well as the emulation. Now we'll go into the emulation in a little bit, because I think a lot of people will be buying this handheld purely for the emulation side. But as you can see, everything isn't perfect, which you'll find out when you see the rest of the video. So the first thing I'll go into is the Dig emulator. Now this did take me quite a while to set up how I wanted it. It wasn't difficult by no means, but it certainly wasn't a quick process. And as you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic. However, one thing I will say is the disappointment very quickly started to kick in when using the Dig emulator. And in fact, when actually using the GPD XD Plus as a whole, I was quite disappointed. On paper, this is or should be a fantastic handheld, but for me, it is so hit or miss as to whether something actually works or not. With the Dig emulator, when I first set it up, it worked great. I could go into most of the games and they would work, and then all of a sudden, I just came across problems. Almost every time I tried to play a game on the Dig front end, I had problems. Now I have tried to go into the settings and reset it up because RetroArch works in the background, but it still does exactly the same thing. And as you'll see now, I'll show you Crazy Taxi, which I can promise was working great when I very first set the handheld up. And this is all I get now. Basically a blank screen. And that's it. That's all I get whenever I try to play it. I've tried always to try and change it and to see if I can get it to work properly. So you get that, and then when you come out of Dig and go back into it, you get this message. So then you've got to go into RetroArch and cancel that down as well. So as you can imagine, that's not ideal at all, and I really don't know what's gone wrong with it. So we'll show you something else. So I'll go into MAME. I'll choose something that's. I'll try this one. So go into this Aero Fighters, and again, this used to work without any problems, and yet again you just get a blank screen, and this can be so frustrating. And I can imagine anybody new to Android scene will find it so frustrating themselves that in the end they'll just give up. Now there are plenty of other apps that you can use. Happy Chick is on it, but again I've come across issues with Happy Chick, and as you can see from this video, this clip, all I keep getting is just loading. These are things that I've loaded down, that I've downloaded previously, but when you're waiting to go into the main screen, this is all you get, which, you know, it's not acceptable. Anyone with one of these handhelds wants to be able to jump straight into a game and have fun with it, not have to sit around and wait and come in and out of screens and closing apps to try and get them to work. It's just not acceptable. So we'll look at one of the games I downloaded, God of War. Again, in theory, this should work. The handheld is powerful enough to work with it. Yes, it has. It runs through the emulator. I think it's the PSSP emulator. But again, I've played this game on a different handheld, which wasn't as powerful as this one, and it worked to a reasonable standard. But as you can see on the XD Plus, it just doesn't play at all. And again, just very, very disappointing. More so when you look at what this handheld costs compared to the other makes that you can get. But there is another app that's built into it, just called Emulator. When you put your games on, you can go through this front end, and actually this works okay, no problems whatsoever. But again, it is very hit miss. I don't want to have to keep coming in and out of games until I find something that's going to work. I want to jump straight into a game that I want to play at that time. So overall, so far, it has been very disappointing. But when it works, it really does work quite well. As you can see with this one, absolutely no problems. There's no stuttering, screen tearing or anything. It works absolutely great, and it was quite good fun. I mean, Captain Commando is probably one of the most well-known emulation games that you can play with MAME or FBA, but it works it works flawlessly. I just don't understand why the handheld is so hit and miss when it comes to what's going to work and what isn't going to work. Button wise, very responsive. Like I said before, the actual image of the on the screen is excellent. You probably can't see it as well on the video, but the image quality really is excellent. The colours are lovely and vibrant. Compared to other handhelds, fair enough that they might be cheaper than this one, and that does have an impact on the quality of the screen that you get. But again, I mean, this handheld, it's around about £180 in the UK to buy this, compared to the likes of Anbernic and some other makes, where you can pick them up, handhelds up from them for around about £80-90. So, there's a massive difference in the margin between the prices, but this does do a lot more. Remember that. Not only can you play emulation games, but you can surf the web, you can stream games, you can watch movies, and a lot of that stuff you can't do on the consoles from the likes of Anbernic. They're very limited. So we'll just look at this one, Star Wars game. Again, it's on an emulator which works on most handhelds, but on this, you go so far, and then all of a sudden, it just freezes. And this is the frustrating thing. You don't want this from a handheld. You want to be able to jump straight into your games and get into them straight away. You don't want all of this hassle. And, when I was asked to review this by Ploylab, I was quite excited to be able to get it and to have some fun with it. But I'll be quite honest, I would say I've probably never felt so frustrated using a handheld as what I have been with this one. I mean, as you can see, I'm actually going to have to do a hard reset and switch the actual handheld off altogether, because it's just completely frozen. And it's not acceptable. You're not going to want to spend £180-190 for something like this. So then if we go on to video streaming, Kodi build. Kodi works on it. I know you can get different builds for it, depending on what you want. And again, very hit and miss. Again, when I first set this up, it worked absolutely fine. There was no issues whatsoever. And then a week later, you go into it and absolutely nothing. And this is the thing that I'm finding with most of the things on this handheld. You'll go to it one day, it'll work great. The next day, nothing will work on it. I have switched off auto update before anybody mentions about that, so that's not the issue. But when it does work, the image quality really is fantastic. As you can see now, it's streaming a video, and no problem whatsoever there. It is perfectly watchable. Surfing the web, again, works okay, no problem whatsoever. It streams videos fine. You can flick through. It's very, very responsive for the touch screen. But this is still £190 handheld. There are cheaper things that you can go out there and buy that would allow you to surf the web for less than £190. So you're not going to go out and buy this handheld just because you can surf the web. It does run on Android 7, and I think that is part of the issue, if I'm honest with you. It is an outdated version. The chipset is outdated, more so for 2021. And I think for anyone going out there and buying this, you will have to basically start from scratch and take everything off the handheld and put a completely different build on it. The streaming side of things, for the Xbox Game Pass, works absolutely fine with this. As you can see, I'm using the Xbox controller. It was a bit dusty there, apologies for that. But even with the Xbox, sometimes it'll kick you out for no reason. And I think that's more to do with the actual handheld and the operating system rather than the actual app. But when it does work, it works very, very well, as you can see. The good thing is, because this is touchscreen, some of the games on the Xbox Game Pass are for touch screens, so you can use it no problem whatsoever. So I'll go into a game, and you can actually see how well it runs. Image wise, very, very good, as you'll see when I play Forza. There is some lag. I did notice some lag at first, but then once I got used to the amount of lag that was in the game, it sort of got a little bit better. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but then I wouldn't say the Xbox Game Pass streaming app is perfect. Remember, it is. I think it's still in the beta stage, so it's not necessarily the handheld that's to blame for this. But as you can see from the image quality from this game, once it boots up, it looks excellent. So as you can see, there wasn't a massive amount of lag when playing this, if I'm honest with you. It was perfectly playable. It was strange using it playing it on a small screen with the controller, which is why I'm all over the road a little bit. But image wise, as you can see, it's absolutely superb. I mean, to be able to play something like this on a small handheld, such as the XD Plus, is an absolutely fantastic way to play. But bear in mind, you need a very good Wi-Fi connection to be able to play. Otherwise, you will get dropouts, you will get screen tearing, and the image won't be as good as what you're seeing right now. So even though this plays well, you need to still bear that in mind. You're not going to have a perfect playthrough. And my worry would be with the handheld, because it is so hit-y miss with regards to whether something's actually going to work or not. It's always going to be in the back of your mind when you boot up: are you actually going to get a play session out of this, or are you going to spend the next hour switching the console, the handheld, on and off, or closing the app and then having to relaunch it because of issues. which I think for many people they won't be prepared to tolerate that. But I haven't had that issue with the Xbox Game Pass. It has played absolutely flawlessly for me. So when it comes to looking at other games, obviously you can play Android games, so you can go into the Play Store and load down loads of different types of genres of games. But again, some of them will be hit or miss. I tried to play Asphalt, I think it was Asphalt 9, and it crashed, it wouldn't play. But I think that's more to do with the fact that it's using Android 7. And a lot of games will not be compatible with Android 7. So you need to update the Android operating system, which at the moment, I'm not sure you can actually do that for free. I know there is a guy who has some additional Androids operating systems, but you have to pay for those. And then you've got the task of having to change the whole operating system. So, which anyone who isn't tech savvy may struggle to do. But when the Android games do work, they work absolutely fantastic. As you can see with this one, the image quality, the graphics on it are fantastic, and it played really, really well. The only criticism that I did have was the button mapping, because I had to set that up in order to use the sticks and the buttons for the relevant inputs rather than using touchscreen, and that wasn't an easy task to do. It took me a good 10 minutes, and I had an issue with the right stick at one point on the button mapping, where it wouldn't allow me to change or move the icon over to the right hand side where I needed it to be. And I don't know again whether that's just a flaw with the operating system or whether that's an issue with the button mapping. What you're seeing now is how it came out of the box. I've done nothing with it. I haven't changed the operating system or anything. And I know you can do that. You can basically wipe everything off this handheld and start from scratch. And at some point I will look at doing that and possibly doing a follow-up video so you can see the difference. But again, it's very time consuming. Do you want to spend £190 to have to spend all of that time putting on a completely new operating system just so that you get a smooth experience? Really, you shouldn't have to. But me personally, I think it is something that I'm going to have to do, because as it stands, I will find it very frustrating to spend long periods of time using this handheld. And that's not because of the hardware side of it. The hardware is actually fantastic. The buttons are responsive, the sticks are great, the image quality is good, sound quality isn't too bad. I did expect more. The amount of power in the battery for long play is great, but it's that operating system, and it's that operating system that totally brings this handheld down. And I'm so disappointed in the fact that GPD have basically just pushed this handheld to one side, and they're not doing a great deal of updates for it, because they're concentrating on the Windows version handhelds. What they are going to be like, I don't know. I'm hoping at some point to get a hold of one to review, but it's just it is very disappointing that they brought this out and then they're concentrating on something a bit more pricey with better hardware, better internals, better operating system, and basically they've just sort of forgotten the XD Plus, which is such a shame. So I'll show you the button mapping that you can do now, and I'll show you the issues that I had with it when it came to the right hand side, to map it onto that right hand side stick. So I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see it. And as you can see, these are the icons, so you can move these anywhere on the screen, and these will overlay the touch controls on a game if you don't want to use the screen. But as you can see, the touch control on the right hand side, which would be for you looking around, it doesn't allow that to move. And I don't quite understand why that is. You can move everything else, but you can't move that. So again, is that an issue with the hardware, or is that an issue with the software? So there you have it, 2021. Would I recommend the GPD XD Plus? I'm going to have to say no, simply because of all of those issues. Maybe if the operating system is completely changed and it works better, then that may change my mind. But as it stands, out of the box, I couldn't really recommend this handheld to anyone, more so because of the price. When it works absolutely great. It's a nice bit of hardware. It looks good, it feels good, but money to value wise, I couldn't recommend it. There are much cheaper handhelds out there that work a lot better than the XD Plus. I think for anyone to go out and buy this, they need to just bear in mind that there is a lot of work that they will have to do to get it to work the way they want it. And just bear in mind that one day you may go into it and it just may not work the way it was working the day before. If you can get your head around that, then absolutely fine. But as it stands, I couldn't recommend it. So once again, everyone, thank you to Ploy Lab for supplying me with the XD Plus. And thank you everyone for watching this video. Please subscribe and hit that like button and share. And I'll see you next time.